Thank you so much, Jake. Thank you, everyone, for joining with us here again. I see we've got a good group of folks coming in, which is always exciting. I'm going to go ahead and launch one of the polls while folks are getting in here. Awesome. Looks like we're all joined. Perfect. So I've got a poll live for those who are joining virtually. Want to know which area you have found most impactful in closing sales within Goodshuffle Pro. Quote expiration, email templates, line item groups, or sectioning things out on your proposals, or customizing your project list like Mallory was showing us earlier today to give you some quick and actionable insight of what's going on in your business. While folks are putting that into the virtual poll, folks who are local or are joining us in person, have yourself a think of what has been most helpful for you on your side. And for those who did come and join us in person, you're probably wondering why I'm not on stage. Because I'm behind you. No, I'm just joking. I joined from my desk because we're going to be having an incredible virtual session here today. I'm leading our next and final action-packed session of the day with some amazing speakers. You see, we've talked a lot today about processes and improvements that you make day to day, but the big picture is closing that deal each and every time. In this session, you'll learn best practices that'll help you stand out from the competition and close more deals. From crafting the perfect proposal to presenting your quotes, this session has everything you need to level up your client-facing processes. So I'm going to go and close out the poll here in just a quick second. Oh, I'm going to relaunch that poll. Looks like it may have just gotten shut early. All right, so we've got the poll running now. Great, and we've got some more votes coming in. Great. So I'd like to welcome all to the session, Winning More Clients with Proposals and Quotes, Best Practices. I'll give folks just a few more seconds to get your votes in. Countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll end that poll. And if there's something in the poll options that you feel hasn't been offered or isn't available or you want to or isn't on that list, let me know. We'll be happy to tackle that during our session here today. So it looks like quote expiration has been the most helpful or most impactful thing for most folks. Email templates and then line item groups followed by shortly after that. So we're going to drill into that. We're going to dive into those options today. So as a quick bit of housekeeping, we're going to start with some welcome and intros. We're then going to focus on quotes that close, features that you can use for follow-up, and we do have some time for Q&A at the very end. I'd like to welcome our speakers. We've got Darren Randle, the founder and COO of Houston Tents and Events. Eyal Simko, he's the creative director of the One Up Group. And unfortunately, we were going to be joined by Luna Moreno from Luna Design Studios, but unfortunately, they are sustaining an injury, so they are going to be taking a day off today, but we wish them a speedy recovery from the incident the other day. But to kick things off, I would like to first turn things over to Darren to hear how you got started, what you love most about this industry, and also a fun fact.
Hello, thanks, Colin. Good afternoon, everyone. I got started in the industry about 10 years ago on the rental side, and prior to that, I was the customer for about 7 or 8 years along a few different stops in sports and college athletics, and then ultimately I worked for a Fortune 50 company and used a lot of different event rental companies during that time, and that's ultimately led me to the small business route and to the rental side of events. Instead of planning them, I'm now the go-to for the vendor for them. And so my favorite thing about events is, or I guess the industry is, being a part of some incredible days for people. It's something that people always look forward to, whether it be a wedding or a birthday party or a concert or a sporting event. It's something that gets people through the next day or the next week, and something that's a date on the calendar they're looking forward to. So we get to, everybody in this industry, mostly they're all using Goodshuffle, are able to create some memorable experiences for everybody in different walks of life every day.
Awesome. And do you have a fun fact that you'd like to share?
Uh, an icebreaker I usually use, so I guess I use it for the fun fact. My wife was bit by a shark on Memorial Day, like about 15 years ago down in Galveston. So, first one on the Texas coast in about 100 years, and unfortunately, they've since had a few others. But thankfully, she's perfectly fine, all limbs still intact, and I would tell the story that I wrangled the shark out of the water, but that's not true. So.
We don't know that. It would be a perfect story. I love it. Perfect. And you're already getting some love in the chat, Darren. We have Ramon saying, "Bring it on, Darren." Awesome. So, Eyal, we'd love to turn things over to you. Hear how you got started, what you love about the industry, and also how many sharks you've wrangled, or a fun fact, another fun.
Yeah, just to echo that, I would say that's a great breaker for two lies and a truth. Getting bit by a shark right there. Hi, everybody. I'm Eyal Simko. I'm the creative director of the One Up Group. We're an event production agency. We do experiential audio, video, lighting, and all that fun jazz on the technical side. How did I get started? So when I was 12 years old, I went to a teen nightclub on Friday nights, and there was this DJ who was playing music, and basically I was mesmerized by this guy because he never spoke on the microphone, but he controlled like 100 12-year-old teens running around like strictly through music. I really like caught on to that, and I said, I really want to do what you do. He said, "You're too young, come back when you're 16, I'll get you a job." On my 16th birthday, I knocked on his door and I said, "You owe me a job." I started DJing when I was 16. 2 years later, started hosting events, and then slowly got a little bit more and more and more involved. And 25 years later, here we are doing large scale events. So that's sort of how I got my start. We started in Toronto. Now our headquarters are here in LA. We have operations in LA and in Toronto and Miami as well. What do I love about the industry? It's the people, right? It's like we're very, very fortunate enough to be able to, not only produce experiences and put on our creative thinking caps day in, day out and figure out how do we create these experiences for people, but it's actually like interacting and meeting these people. Every job is very different. Every client is very, very different. And so it just keeps things very, very fresh for us. It's not very monotonous in our industry. So that's truly what I genuinely love about the industry. I don't know if I can do a better fun fact than Darren over here. I mean, you kind of stole the show with a shark, but I guess a fun fact for me is we are very close to launching a new company that what I believe is going to revolutionize some like AV equipment in the production world. June 11th is when we will be basically unveiling this to the public. And so we're very, very excited about that. So that's been taking up a lot of my time and very excited about it. So that's a fun fact for me. Can't talk about too much now, but June 11th, I think you guys are going to hear a lot about it.
Well, send us a link. We'll include it in some of our newsletters because I'm sure we're all
going to be
with bated breath. Awesome.
I would love that.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining with me today. Looking back at what we wanted to cover here, the next piece that we wanted to review are prize proposals. So the way that you have set up some of the projects that have either wowed the client, closed, or even increased or have generated more revenue than they originally expected to. So Darren, I know that you were looking for some of the proposals on your side. So I'm going to go and stop sharing my screen. And if you can share your screen, we would love to take a look at one of those proposals, and then we'll pass things over to you on your side, Eyal.
Perfect. Thanks, Colin.
You're welcome.
Let me know if that came through okay.
Checking here. Yeah, perfect. I can see your screen here on my side. Looks good.
So I'm actually going to share a proposal that was recently lost. They ended up choosing a venue instead of an outside tented venue. But for all intents and purposes, this client in particular, as well as others that we've had, were going to choose us if they would have kept it as an outdoor venue, primarily because of our formatting and the way that our proposals come through. I've won a 7-figure job in the industry in the last 5 years based on how my proposal came through in using Goodshuffle. And that was really the only thing that set us apart from some of the other platforms out there was the client's experience with how it looked, how the integration went through, from reviewing, approving, paying, all that sort of thing. But what I'd like to highlight here is We're very methodical about the information we put in here. Goodshuffle gives you the ability to pull all of the analytics you'd like out of it, but that information is only as good as the people putting in the data. So, for example, we never have any order go in that doesn't have the event category. It's something that people can think sometimes is easy to overlook, but I would love to go to my dashboard and see the breakdown I have certain times of the year and see where our successes are, see where our loss and failures are. It tells both stories, successes and failures. Um, we format everything the same as far as venue. It's always private residence before. That way we can go through venues and easily sort that. Otherwise, when you're going through venues trying to see is there certain ones you need to reach out to or follow up with, having mixed addresses just all mingled within your venues can make it very messy. Um, Always a day of contact on here. If it's a planner and not the end user or client, we'll put planner in parentheses here. And then we use this area like the Bible on our external and internal notes. I would say we use it more every month than we did the prior month, as far as it's the only way as our team has grown now to as big as we are for everybody to stay on the same page. It's an area where you don't have to bother somebody after hours. All you got to do is look at the internal notes and see what they were trying to communicate from their site visit or whatnot. I break everything down by section. I know that on some users decide that they want to put the wedding here in the next category, the reception, and so on and so forth. We break it down by what technical department that's coming in. So for us, it's always 10 accessories in this section. And if it has a 10, it's always at the top. It's the most time consuming. It's the biggest thing going out there. We then follow that up. And you can see underneath the tent and accessories, we have all the parts and quantity that go with that package. Someone asked me, we try to make it as simple as possible. Someone asked me if I knew how many rafter beam extensions I have or how many bolts I have. I do, because I know exactly how many need to go in it, and I know when I'm getting overbooked on any of these per item parts. So we've really taken it, to the next level on all of our tent packages. Going down to the next section, it's always rentals. That's usually the next big bulk of items, so on and so forth, with power or heating and cooling, and so on down the line. This also helps us strategize what type of crews are going out there. So our tent crews are typically different than our rental crews, which is different than our power and HVAC division. So it helps us differentiate that way versus the different type of an event. As I mentioned, the wedding, the reception area, the ceremony. We instead decide that if we're going to make notes like that, we use the description for what we would want to separate that as. You can see simple things that we've put on every item. We want to make sure we get our chair covers back. We don't hide anything like that. We want customers to see it. We want to see what we bill for it if we don't have it. Same thing with linen, drawstring bags, heaters. We even put the thermostat kits. I meant, like, if it's got to go out there to the job and it's something that could be disconnected or unplugged, we want to have it all separated together. And then you get down to our labor, which the new breakdown of how we use that function is just under standard hours, after hours, weekend labor. However, we're deciding to use that function. We're able to create just different line items for doing the different things. So we really do take it the next step, because that also helps from our sales team at estimating labor. And then our dispatch team can easily look and see how many people should we be sending out to it, or how many we've billed for that purpose. Purchases section, this is where obviously a challenge that a lot of you probably have is still consumables with Goodshuffle. It's a headache for me as well, just being transparent on this webinar, but we work around it. We use purchases. So before an order gets closed out, our operations team goes into the order, takes out anything that's in purchases, means that it was a consumable for us, and we go through and take out that quantity of that item back out of our inventory again. And obviously we've created different deliveries and pickups for every truck that's going there. The new logistics feature or dispatching feature, this is important. We were already doing this. Now it just makes it easier to implement into the dispatching feature. Um, yeah, we one thing we don't do. You'll notice like there was a discount somewhere up here of line item. We like to keep everything up here within the order versus using it as a mass discount down here because we want it to be tracked. I want to be able to go into labor and see where I discounted that. If I work with a nonprofit, we've created nonprofit or caterer discounts that are its own line item so that I can go year end and track that for reporting. So a lot of what we do is so that we can be able to quarterly, monthly, annually be able to look at that information being put onto our order and be able to pull the right reports and analytics out of it.
That's awesome. One question I have, especially seeing this great process that you've put in here of ensuring you're using the event type, and I included a link in the chat if folks haven't used marking the event type of their projects yet. Super quick and easy. But my question for you in this case, Darren, is how did you come to this process, or how did you decide on this best practice or this flow for your team?
Things were being missed. Very beginning of us starting the company, I wanted to find a way that everything was paperwork. If it's not on the paperwork, then it's the office, it's the admin side's fault, right? And so if someone right now, a lot of our tents are modular, right? So we can take different parts and components. I need to be able to keep these two rafter and extensions separate. We can build this tent with three other different type of rafters. So I'm able to go in here into the relations part and be able to easily change that if it's for something like this that we'd be booking far enough out. I'm going to put different rafters on there that I can only use with that type so that I can keep my other parts completely free and clear to be able to use. For this tent, it's on 10 foot. It needs to be 10 foot height on perimeter. So we have 3 meter uprights on it. I also own 2.6 meter uprights with extensions. Well, that's an optional accessory on here for me to be able to go in and add in if I'm completely out of 3 meter upright. So it's truly like on a weekend like this is the first time probably in the company's history where we have no more structure tent. We have no more parts and pieces that we can make work, but we're right up to our 100% capacity. And it's because of being able to use the inventory and everything being integrated onto each order properly and accurately.
Awesome. Got a quick question just before I pass things over to Eyal for you, Darren. Dustin wanted to know how big is your team?
On the administrative side, there is roughly, I'd say 20 to 20 of us maybe. And then on our crews and everyone, we have about between 50 and 55 crews and warehouse staff.
Gotcha.
So 70 to 75 total.
Cool. And we've got a question from Jennifer. Why do you list the labor separate and not listed as a related accessory to some of these components?
Mainly because I'm putting it's for the way that the customer views it. When the customer decides that, for example, this is a perfect example. We looked at the job itself and everything we were getting out of it. We decided that it'd be okay to discount this 50% on both because we're comfortable with the margins and what we're making on the order. And if I would have created a line item, 2 different accessories, and a customer takes that off, they're also going to expect that associated labor to get pulled off. And you're going to put yourself in a position where now if you discounted another area and they want to remove that, now you're beneath where you want your margins to be for that project. So it's more about customer perception as to what we want, how we want the flow to work. We do have, as you can see, setup and breakdown. Those could be associated directly under a chair or under a table. But I feel like as many tables and things that we put on an order, I just feel like it would make it much longer of an order and keeping everything under services to the customers. You know, being the customer myself, I look at the way that we build our proposals as to what I wanted it to look like and what would I like it to seem. So that's kind of why we have it broken down the way we do.
Gotcha. And we got a question from Ramon that you don't need to add content to a package that are always added. Yeah, so you can always select if the content of the package is required or not. And I'm going to send you a quick link in the chat here with a link to a resource. But thank you, Darren, for sharing that example. Eyal, would love to turn things over to you if there is a proposal or a bid that you've found success with in the past.
Sure. Yeah. Let me bring mine up as well. Thanks for sharing all those notes, Darren, by the way. I think we tend to use this, in a very, very similar fashion. Can you guys see my screen, by the way?
Yep, looks good on my side. We're seeing the package for KCP or KIPP.
Yep, great. So we also break it down by element, right? And so we don't necessarily say just like outside and inside and, maybe different areas. We actually break it down. In fact, if we do have multiple areas, we will break it down into the areas. And then within those areas, we'll break it down into, cocktail. So you can see there's two different cocktail areas. There's student performance. We'll obviously always try to label that. We find that when we label this, our team gets a little bit more visibility and insight in terms of where we're expecting each item. And so the way that we're breaking this down is we're just trying to gain as much visibility for our on-site staff when they're setting up. When we're going in there, we do have some packages that we just basically bulk order them, and then we do have some that have actual line items in there. On the notes side, we do use that extensively as well, as you guys can tell. So we're very cognizant in terms of what we put on the external, and then obviously on the internal side, we have a lot more notes for our team to digest. We always try to populate as much project information or business organization day of contact information. This happens to be a client of ours that we already know very, very well, and the whole team really knows who the planner is. And so we don't really have a day of contact because it's just one of those things where they already know who it is because of the client. One thing that I do like to do that I found very, very helpful. I mean, I think Darren kind of covered a lot. I'm happy to go through this stuff as well with you guys. But essentially, you can tell that whatever the type of event is and the location, we'll always put that in a header, and then we'll give exactly the type of equipment that we do there. One thing that I do like is we created this add-ons. And so, a lot of the times what happens is, we'll have a client that says, we'll need X, Y, and Z, and we give them the quote, and they're like, oh, and by the way, we also need, an extra TV and truss and a TV media player. We need some string lights in the courtyard. So what we found very, very helpful is to add an add-ons. We do an add-ons, and then we put everything that is post the original quote in this section. And basically what happens is it allows the client to track what they're adding versus having to look through where it is. It's like, oh, I added it at the Guerin Pavilion, but was it 4 speakers? What was the other one? Now I have to go back and say, oh yeah, I did have 2 speakers. Now we added 4. So to us, this has been monumental in terms of eliminating the amount of conversations or communication back and forth with the client, trying to get a little bit more, visibility in terms of like, where were these items, added, or are you sure it's in there? I want to make sure this is the final one. So visually, this is very easy for a client and for us to track, what is being added post the original request. So this has been something that's that's been very, very helpful for us. Another thing, and I think we'll probably touch base on that a little bit later on in terms of, part of what we do is Darren also has a lot of little pieces, that like go into his productions. So do we, right? Whether it's down to cables or stands or adapters or whatever the case might be. And so one of the things that I've done is we created a miscellaneous, and then we basically hide added items. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to really have the ability for our fulfillment team to be able to like add elements that will not affect the end result of the quote or the price point for the client, right? And so that really allows us to, because we're always trying to over deliver, right? And so like if I'm the one doing the quote or somebody else is doing the quote, we always have a second set of eyes who's doing the fulfillment to make sure that like, hey, this is missing, or hey, we're not really sure about this venue. Why don't we pack 20 extra uplights in case we need to, or why don't we add another audio kit or whatever the case might be. So our fulfillment center has the ability to obviously edit and add items. And so we purposely hide this. And so it doesn't affect the bottom line for the client, but it also allows us to track our our inventory, what's going in and what's going out. And that allows us to have a lot of flexibility because, in production, the last thing you want is to have to send another truck back to the warehouse because we're missing whatever element, right? And so we always try to, overpack a little bit to make sure that we're able to, either overproduce for the client or make sure that nothing is of oversight.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I see a lot of love getting thrown out from Ramon and then from Grover on that MISC line item. We have a request from Grover to see how that looks from the client's end. Would you mind just quickly toggling into the client preview? Awesome. Yeah, so because it's a hidden item, very bottom. Yeah, clients is just going to see the line item group, but none of the products within it.
Correct. So they just see the miscellaneous, but they won't see anything in there. But on the flip side, on the fulfillment, in this particular one, we didn't have to add anything, but on the fulfillment side, we'll have a whole list of breakdown in terms of what equipment was sent out.
Gotcha. And in terms of leveraging or impacting your business operations, can you talk to us a little bit more about how adding those extra pieces or adding those extra parts has made a difference in your operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for us, we're a lot more efficient in the sense that where we don't have to send out trucks back to the warehouse. Here's the thing: we own a lot of everything, and I'd rather have additional things on the truck than in my warehouse. And now we're short, whatever the case might be. One of the things that we always tell our clients is, and we always encourage them, it's sort of an inside joke with us, is do a tech audit on what you have on your quote versus what you have on site. Because a lot of the times, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, whatever that may be, I can tell you that if you paid for 40, you're realistically going to have 60. If you paid for 4 speakers, but we felt 6 is better, you're probably going to have 6 speakers, and we're not going to really charge for that. This is where the miscellaneous really helps us out, is because we're pulling more gear that we feel might enhance the experience, but we just don't want to bog down and go back with paperwork, and now they have to sign it again because we added something and there's like a change. And then I'm sure you guys know if there is a change in the order, it goes back to red, and then our warehouse management team might get an email saying that the event is canceled, but then it's back on because it's got to like re-update itself. And so we're just trying to eliminate a lot of that stuff. If we're happy with the margins, like Darren mentioned, if we're happy with the margins, we're not the nickel and diming company where it's going to be like, well, you used 5 extra uplights, so that's going to be an extra $100. It's not us. Our marketing is word of mouth, right? And so if somebody's there and really gets wowed by the event, that's when we know we did something right.
Wicked. Wicked. And this is going to be the next topic of discussion, and I see a few folks are catching wise to it. Eyal, can you show us, just as a preview, adding some extra items to that MISC line that the client wouldn't see, wouldn't be charged for, or wouldn't need to sign for, as an example?
So for example, we can add a fulfillment inventory order, right? So if I wanted to do that, and let's just say I wanted to add, an extra mover, right? So I can add that, I can add this, I can add that. Let's add a 27-inch monitor. I'm just randomly going through here. So, on the fulfillment side, you're going to see that these items were all pulled, and this is all hidden. So this is obviously for us, and we'll obviously know that. But on the contract side, all of these items are hidden. And so if you're looking at the client view, you're still not seeing anything. It's just a miscellaneous, right? But again, just going back to, our view, our team is going to be able to see all of these things, and we're going to be able to like pull it and tech it and, you know, mark that off as it's gone off to the truck and whatnot. And so this is how we basically run our, you know, additional items that we don't want the quote to get affected with. And this has been very, very, very helpful. Truly, you know, there'd be some times where I would forget just to put the miscellaneous because I'm just focused on like just building out the RFP, and our warehouse will literally call me right away or just send me a message through Goodshuffle and say, hey, please add miscellaneous heading. Like they're not even pulling it and they're already flagging it because they want it, because it's just now part of our workflow, and it's worked really well.
Nice. Right on. And I saw Paul had a question. You can add items that are automatically hidden as long as you add them from the fulfillment side. Anything that you add from the fulfillment end, as Eyal was just doing, they're always going to be hidden, so the client's never going to see it or see a charge associated with that item. The other thing, just before I pass things back over to Darren, that I've seen other companies do is for anything that they may want to show to the client as a option or as something that they want to suggest, is they have a line item group or a section that is add-ons, optional items, and they add some products in there with a quantity of 0. That way, it's not tracking for conflicts, it's not even going to add to the subtotal, but the client will still be able to see the price of what those items could be if they wanted to add them to their bid. Wicked. Well, thanks for those tips, Eyal. I see that the chat is popping off with a lot of excitement around some of those suggestions, and I'm just going to shift back to my slides here. So we talked about some proposals that have worked well. The next piece that we're going to chat about that we've already dipped our toes in is, but wait, there's more. So while building the proposal is an important part of the process, there is a lot more that can happen after that initial bid is sent out. So adding some extra items from fulfillment, that is a fantastic example. I would love to shift back over to you, Darren, and hear a little bit more about some tools or some techniques that you've found success with in terms of upselling your client. For example, I saw that there were some tents and some other components on the order. If I was your client, how would you go about negotiating adding sidewalls or negotiating the type of anchor that needs to go on the tent? How does that typically work for you?
So I think for us, something that we've done most recently, as our number of proposals being sent out has increased more than even the last few months than prior years, is I've tried to put the best plan together for what the customer needs, which sometimes isn't always what they're asking for, because I would rather be the company that puts all of the items on there of what their vision and their design of what they're sharing is. If they have a budget, it makes it a lot easier to manage that differently. But if someone says, I've never done this before, I don't have a budget, they don't have any other quotes to go from, you're kind of on no man's land. And so the best thing to do is, if I've trained all of our event specialists that act as if you're the client. If you're building this birthday party, what are the main components you want? And if there's something that you know is a luxury to have and not a necessity, then you can create a separate section, just like he'd mentioned that he does on his proposals, or we will list it in the notes, in the external notes. For example, if you'd like to add, tent lighting, here's the cost for it, so on and so forth, so that everybody can see what is the potential, upgrades, let's call it, that I can make. But what gets me the nuts and bolts to actually at least get this rental order off the grid. So, because the longer that sits pending, or the longer you have to set an expiration out, the longer that those items could potentially be tied up. And overbooking is just something we don't do. So the only way to avoid that is to get customers to commit quickly to it, or move on. And if they come back to us after they've gotten more bids and maybe dip their toes more into where their order needs, at least they know that what we provided was truly what they needed, and not just a few of the things that we're doing to get a contract signed in hopes we can then upsell them later, because that, as a customer experience, is the wrong way to do it. I will say that going, fast forward, I guess, to our quote expiration, the poll that you took, Colin, at the beginning, had the majority of folks on here that said that the quote expiration has been the most helpful for them. in using the platform. I would agree, but the one stance I would take there is in the last 3 months, I've had more people reach out to me that they thought it was just an automated message. They didn't know that their items really weren't being reserved, and I'm sure there's a lot of people laughing right now. But ultimately, what that led us to do is to make sure that our messaging, even if it is something that's automated, is being sent with a more personal touch. It's very easy to want to create a million templates, and we have a ton of messages, ones which I can share now and show kind of what we have. I still want to make sure that it's being personalized. Um, and so we've created almost everything that you could think of as far as a template wise. And although we also have this being managed and what goes out when to a customer, we also still do our separate follow ups. Sometimes the Goodshuffle communications, as we all know, don't always make it there. There's some Gmail or some email filtering challenges sometimes. So there's nothing like a personal email touch up. But if you're just trying to get quotes out, accurate quotes to customers for the potential to win the bid, the templates give us a baseline to at least send out some messaging a few times here and there. Um, we don't have the feature selected that auto sends about past due balances or payment due balances. Every customer is unique. There's a different, our finance team is responsible for making sure that stays accurate. I will say, so if you're not using it, don't feel like you're the only one. I do think that the messaging, I would much rather a client receive multiple emails showing that their quote is going to expire, their order is not going to be held for them, it's not reserved until they're signed, versus the back end of, pay us our money, pay us our money. You're past due. Oh, well, you made a change and now the 50% deposit is shifted, and now a huge contract is getting hit up because for $49. It's just not a good experience on the finance side. So we try to keep our messaging consistent on the quote side and let finance be handled as a one-off directly with the clients.
Gotcha. I was hearing you talk a lot about personalization and making sure that does come as a personalized message to the client. I saw in some of the message templates that you have built here, there's a lot of good use of the personalization tokens. So I see we've got on this one like project AD, amount due, but then on some others, right? I see that you've got like the logistics start, the logistics end, because a lot of companies I work with, that is one of the main questions that they CEO often needed to just like chief repeating officer. They always need to just keep telling the customer when their delivery is, getting confirmation, and putting that in front of them. Is there something within the templates that you've built here that has saved you the most time and questions from your clients?
I would say that delivery and pickup window, if I could make it even more massive font, I would probably make it on there. Our dispatch team appreciates that, and although we call the day before deliveries and day before pickups, the best time to catch something isn't then in the busy season. It's when the quote is being signed, and it's just one more layer to try to protect rental companies. If we give the customer an opportunity, they're going to try to throw in anything they can last minute and try to put it on our plate and make it our responsibility as the vendor. And so it's easy to go back and see messaging that has this section right here in the middle that says event hours, delivery window, pickup window, and just say it was in the proper communication. So we try to keep that there. We also, as you can see on this, for example, we go ahead even at the quote point, we highlight the payment terms so there's no confusion. If you're a net customer, you're a net customer, you ask us. If not, what's going to push this into the next phase. Just signing the agreement may not be sufficient. If you don't have net terms, we're going to need to see payment for it so that we can actually reserve it and move forward with it. So I will see us using more and more message templates probably in the future as it relates to obtaining maps. It's not something we do now, but maps and layouts have become a struggle to get on the festivals and nonprofit side, even corporate event planners. And so we're talking about creating templates for things that we need by certain deadlines that we don't want to be mixed into the finance side or the quote send side, but just truly documents we need to do their order and job successfully.
Gorgeous. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing some of those template examples on your side, Darren. Eyal, any other suggestions on some language that you found effective or impactful when communicating with your clients?
Yeah, it's a very minor adjustment to the templates. We have not built so many templates. We've sort of used a lot of, what was already on Goodshuffle, but tweaked a little bit of the language around here and there. But going back to the add-ons, right, just to keep everything, what we find is we're trying to be very, very meticulous and very transparent in terms of like what every client, like what the client is paying for, like what every item costs. And so we're not getting a lot of the questions in terms of like, break it down for me any further than that. I mean, we get granular to begin with anyways. But what we've found to be when we're sending these quotes out and there are updates, for example, we'll actually highlight the updates for them within the actual body of email as well. And we find that since we've done that, it's actually reduced a lot of, like, you would be surprised because what we did is with the add-ons, we thought, okay, well, you have an add-on section, you can kind of see that. So this is just more of a redundancy messaging. And what we found is as soon as we started doing this, we've had way less follow-ups and just more direct bookings in terms of, okay, this is everything I need. This is exactly what I asked for. They've labeled it for me. I trust them, whether they want to review the quote or not. Like, here it is, right? So if we're already at a stage where they're asking for more items, obviously it's a great sign. And, we're just basically highlighting what we added for them. And once you click accept, the quote will convert into an invoice and you'll have the option to pay. So.
Right. And Eyal, we do have a question for you, and also on your side, Darren, from Paul Hines. They love the templates that you've built out here. Would you mind if I put y'all in touch and you can talk about, or you can share out some of the language that you found effective?
Yeah.
Super, super. Excellent. Eyal, I'm going to take over the screen share here for a quick question because we talked a lot about quote expiration and what people have liked about it. The question I always like to ask at this point is, how do you handle quote expiration with your business? I've just launched a poll here. It's currently running. So when quote expiration fires, do signatures get disabled? Are the projects marked as lost? Or are you not using quote expiration yet? All right, give folks a few more seconds here to get their votes in. All right. All right, we'll count down. 3, 2, 1. All right, this is interesting. Last year during our user summit, it was pretty much an even 50-50 split between disabling signatures and marking the project as lost. Looks like the scales have tipped a little bit more in terms of disabling signatures, which is something I've heard from the other folks I work closely with, primarily because of the way that handles conflicts. Because if the project is marked as lost, those items are no longer thought of being in use on that job and are freed up from conflict detection. Whereas disabling signatures, you are still in a pretty good position to know what's available and what could be a conflict should the customer come to the realization and want to book with you. So Darren, we'll start with you. How does Houston Tents and Events handle quote expiration? Are you team signature disable or team project is lost?
We were team project lost because we want to give everybody the opportunity to sign it, and if you can't make a buying decision and commitment to it, then we want to make sure that those items are available for anyone else that may want to use our services and products. We have since, within the last 3 or 4 months, transitioned more over to just disabling to give us more of an opportunity to follow up. And at least at that point, if someone does come back to the table last minute, we can still explore if we can provide the services to them. And if so, it gives us a chance to adjust the pricing. If we need to order or add something more in to get it in by their date, or if there's a rush on something, disabling and being able to manipulate the pricing accordingly so that we can still meet our margins allows us a chance to still send it back to the client again to see if they like to use our services now. But we didn't hold off on making a decision to help someone else. So currently we're using it more in the disabled function, and I would say even on the date and timing, if it is an order within the next 30 days, we are giving someone 5 days to make a buying decision. If they don't make a decision within that period of time, that's putting us in within just a few weeks. And we were able to look at analytics and show how many orders come in within 30 days historically the last 2 years. And we want to be able to take on that next last minute order if we can, if the first person is still trying to collect more quotes or just taking their time. We then and then beyond that, if the event is beyond 30 days, we're giving it between 7 days to 30 days, depending on how far out the event is. And then we typically right now we will book out about 15 to 16 months. But anything over that, we require someone to reach back out to us. So, the furthest out that we will put a quote expiration is generally 30 to 45 days.
Gotcha. And I see we're just coming up on time here, so I've got a couple more questions. Eyal, team expiration or team signatures disabled?
Well, in all honesty, I'm not on either of those teams. We experimented with expirations, and we didn't really find a lot of luck on that side of things. In all honesty, it's not part of our consumer sales journey as well.
Yeah.
I just don't like to give people sort of a deadline to work with us type of thing. To us, we're very open, we're very fluid. We have a really large team. We have clients that are calling us. I'll give you an example. We got a client that called us yesterday for a massive experiential build out for Coachella this starting on Thursday, which is tomorrow. So we have the ability to take that on, and so we don't really explore the expiration. We just have a really good experience with offering them what we're able to do, and if they come back, great. We obviously have our follow-ups and whatnot, but we don't experiment with any expiration.
Gotcha. Well, I see we are coming up on time here, and I deeply cherish, and I see a lot of the folks in chat have learned a lot from their side. I do have one final question before we wrap things up, and we'll start with you on your side, Eyal. What piece of advice would you give to event professionals looking to grow their business in today's market?
Well, first of all, if you're just getting into the industry right now and you're looking to grow, I would definitely say, networking for us has been, a really, really powerful tool. And obviously having the tools on the back end that runs your business is really going to make things a lot easier. Also, you want to be able to differentiate yourself. What we find with Goodshuffle is it allows us to have a really good user experience in terms of being able to do the images with the actual products, and clients really tend to like that. And so we've invested a lot of time to get really good product images, marketing, SEO, all of that, good jazz in terms of if you're just kind of getting into it. But ultimately, from our experience, I would say since we've started using Goodshuffle, our workflows have been a lot better. We've been a lot more efficient. The tools that we are utilizing within Goodshuffle keeps us a little bit more of a tighter bunch when it comes to production. So those on the general surface level, that's the direction I would kind of go with.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that insight, Eyal. And on your side, Darren, what advice would you give to someone looking to grow their business?
I would say put yourself in the mind of the consumer or your customer. I think that in today's society, we've kind of kicked customer service to the side. And for those that do know how to value the customer experience and try to deliver what they say they're going to do, I think that those companies will be rewarded throughout time. And just being clear and transparent is the way to do it. And that's, Goodshuffle allows us the ability to do that through the messaging, through the Goodshuffle files, to be able to keep files together for a client. So even if we have employee turnover in the future that handled that client, we've got a portfolio that shows everything historically for those clients. So trying to eliminate as many follow-up questions, as much consistency for our client as we can to give them that top experience. That's what I would share.
Gorgeous.
One thing that I will add to that is, Darren mentioned something about communication, response rates. One of our things is no client should ever wait more than 24 hours. And even on the 24-hour side, when I tell my team that, they really understand that it comes down to the hours. Like, we don't have any emails that are coming in that are not responded to in any capacity, whether like we're too busy and we can't build out a quote. We don't have any emails that are coming in that are not being responded within the hour. Like, that's like a no thing. And for us, they can get quotes within 24 hours. And so what we found is a lot of clients are like, everyone is like, thank you so much for responding so quickly to this. Because at the end of the day, there's 100 of me, there's 100 of Darren's. There's 100 of options that this client does. And like, it's the client ADHD where it's like, I need to talk to like 8 different people to lock something in. I need it right now. Everything is like right now, right now, right now. If you are the first person to respond, you have a little bit more of a relationship to build because now you're more trustworthy with that person. You're more available to that person. And so for us, communication has been a really, really big tool to be able to win clients over. So they see that we're always on top of it. I respond to emails at 2 a.m. Like, there's no, I don't wait until the next morning because I don't want to, why is this guy emailing me at 2 a.m.? No, I don't care. Like, you're gonna hear from me as soon as I see it.
One of us. Well, I appreciate all of the feedback, the lessons learned, the candor that we've built up here. I'm very excited to see there's been a lot of great connections and collaborations that's come out of this. So thank you again, Darren and Eyal, for making this a fantastic cap to an incredible day. Thank you again.
Awesome. I do see the whole Goodshuffle headquarters over there. There was one comment that actually stuck out to me that I hope maybe you guys can take a look at that, and maybe that's like a labor market. Somebody said, "Are you open to sharing staffing in different towns?" That would be a really cool thing. I mean, we produce all over America, and we're always looking for great talent. We obviously have our teams boots on the ground, but I mean, Goodshuffle has a lot of people all over America that have some good people. So could be a cool feature.
During our the session with the co-founders, there was something that was teased that I can't get too much into, or I could see where it may have been leading, but keep your eyes peeled, and we'll also keep your eyes peeled for your exciting announcement.
June 11th, we'll exchange secrets.
Sweet. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, guys.
Thank you. I'll pass it back over to headquarters.
Thank you.